What if the wilderness held secrets we were never meant to uncover? Tonight, we explore 3 chilling tales that will leave you questioning what lurks in the shadows of the Pacific Northwest. In the vast expanse of Mount Rainier National Park, over 400 individuals have ventured into the wilderness, never to return. Among these mysteries is the case of Dr. Sam Dubel, a 33-year-old anthropologist who disappeared on October 9, 2020, while hiking the Mother Mountain Loop. Despite extensive search efforts, no trace of him has been found. Traveling west to the dense forests of the Olympic Peninsula, we uncover the story of John Torno, known as the Wild Man of the Wynoochee. In 1911, Torno became a fugitive after the mysterious deaths of his nephews. For nearly 2 years, he eluded capture, becoming a legend among local loggers and a figure of fear for children in the area. Finally, along the foggy shores of the Oregon coast, tales persist of unexplained disappearances. Local Native American folklore speaks of spirits inhabiting the coastal areas, adding a supernatural element to these mysteries. Join us as we delve into these enigmatic stories, seeking to shed light on the darkness that shrouds the Pacific Northwest. In the shadow of Mount Rainier, towering above the Pacific Northwest, a place of breathtaking beauty conceals a darker reputation. Every year, thousands of visitors venture into the pristine wilderness of this iconic peak, but for some, the journey into the heart of the mountain becomes their last. Over the years, more than 400 people have vanished within its boundaries, their names now etched into local lore, their fates unanswered. Tonight, we bring you one of the most puzzling cases: 2 seasoned hikers, familiar with the trails and prepared for any challenge, set off on what should have been an ordinary trek. But when they crossed the threshold of that forest, they stepped into the unknown. Mount Rainier is no ordinary mountain. It's a dormant volcano standing over 14,000 feet tall, crowned with glaciers and shrouded in clouds for much of the year. But it's not just the weather that makes this place treacherous. Locals speak of sudden storms, fierce winds, and an unshakable feeling that the mountain itself is watching. And then, there are the stories. Whispers of shadowy figures moving silently through the trees, strange howls echoing in the stillness of night, and footprints that seem to defy explanation. October 10, 2018, Sarah Donovan and Liam Green, both experienced hikers, set out for a weekend trip on the Wonderland Trail. They had the gear, they had the maps, they had years of outdoor experience between them. Their friends say they were meticulous planners, double-checking supplies, leaving detailed itineraries. It was supposed to be a quick trip, 2 days at most, but they would never return. The first sign that something was wrong came when they missed their scheduled check-in. At first, their families weren't alarmed. After all, cell service is spotty in the mountains, and delays are common. But as the hours turned into days, concern grew. A search team was quickly mobilized, combing the trails where they were last seen. Helicopters scanned from above, volunteers spread out on foot, dogs sniffed through the undergrowth. For a week, searchers scoured the area, but no trace of Sarah or Liam was found. It was as if the mountain had swallowed them whole. Then, on the 8th day, a breakthrough, or so it seemed. Near a remote ridge, far from their planned route, searchers discovered a set of footprints in the snow. But these weren't ordinary footprints. They were enormous, nearly twice the size of a human foot, and spaced in a way that suggested a stride far greater than any human could manage. At first, some speculated they might belong to a bear, but the tracks were bipedal, not the staggered gait of a 4-legged animal. And they led nowhere. The prints began abruptly in an open clearing and vanished just as suddenly, as if whatever made them had leapt into the sky or disappeared entirely. The discovery only deepened the mystery. Could Sarah and Liam have wandered so far off course? And if so, what could have left those tracks? Searchers in the area began reporting unsettling experiences. One volunteer claimed to hear faint, high-pitched wails in the distance. Another described a sudden feeling of dread, as if unseen eyes were following their every move. Others dismissed these accounts as the product of exhaustion and imagination. But for those who heard the stories, the mountain's reputation as a place of unexplained phenomena grew stronger. Weeks turned into months and the official search was called off. But for those close to Sarah and Liam, the questions remain. How could two experienced hikers, prepared for the elements and carrying GPS equipment, vanish without a trace? What could have caused them to stray so far from their route? And what, if anything, might have been lurking in the high altitudes that day? Mount Rainier is a place of untamed beauty, where the forces of nature reign supreme. But for some who venture into its depths, it becomes something else entirely, a gateway to the unexplained. And so, we're left to wonder, were Sarah and Liam victims of the mountain's unforgiving terrain? Or did they encounter something far stranger, something we can't quite explain? Their story, like the footprints found in the snow, begins and ends in mystery. The Olympic Peninsula, shrouded in mist and shadow, holds some of the most untamed wilderness in the United States. Towering evergreens stretch endlessly into the sky, their canopy so dense that sunlight barely touches the forest floor. The wind whispers through the trees, carrying secrets that have remained unanswered for decades. It's a place of rugged beauty, but also of isolation, a land that tests the limits of those who dare to enter. In the early 20th century, this remote corner of Washington state was a hub for the logging industry. Entire communities sprang up around the promise of work as men toiled from sunrise to sunset in the dense, unforgiving forests. It was grueling labor, cutting down massive trees with hand tools, hauling timber through miles of unmarked terrain. For many, the wilderness offered a livelihood. For others, it became their grave. On a crisp autumn morning in 1912, a small group of loggers set out from camp to fell trees deep in the heart of the forest. By all accounts, it was an ordinary day. The men were experienced, their routine practiced and precise. They carried with them axes, saws, and enough provisions to last until sundown. They promised their fellow workers they'd return by dusk. But as night fell, the men didn't come back. At first, their absence was met with little concern. It wasn't unusual for loggers to get delayed, an unexpected snag in their work, or perhaps a tree falling in the wrong direction. But as hours turned into days, worry began to creep through the camp. A search party was formed, consisting of their fellow loggers and a handful of locals familiar with the terrain. They followed the men's trail deep into the woods, calling their names and scouring the area for any sign of them. What they found instead sent a chill through the group. In a small clearing, they discovered the men's tools abandoned. An axe leaned against a tree, its blade buried in the bark as if the worker had been interrupted mid-swing. A lunch tin sat open on a stump, its contents untouched. There was no sign of a struggle, no blood, no torn clothing, no disturbed earth. It was as if the men had simply vanished. And then there was the silence. The search party described an eerie stillness that hung over the area, as if the forest itself was holding its breath. No birds called, no insects buzzed. Even the wind seemed to die down as they approached the clearing. Some of the men reported hearing faint voices just beyond the tree line, soft, almost melodic, but unintelligible. Others claimed to feel a strange sensation, like they were being watched. The search stretched on for weeks, but no further traces of the missing loggers were ever found. Rumors began to spread through the camp. Some whispered of accidents, perhaps a falling tree or a hidden ravine that swallowed them whole. Others pointed to the wildlife, though seasoned woodsmen knew bears and cougars rarely left no trace. And then, there were those who turned to the supernatural. The Olympic Peninsula has long been steeped in folklore, with stories passed down from the Native American tribes who first inhabited the region. Tales of shadowy figures that moved through the forest, creatures that mimicked human voices to lure the unwary. To the loggers, these stories had always been just that, tales. But in the wake of the disappearance, many began to wonder if there was truth hidden in the legends. Months after the search was called off, one of the missing men's hats was discovered near a creek, miles away from the clearing where their tools had been found. It was weathered and torn, but unmistakably his. How it had ended up there, so far from their original work site, remains a mystery. The forest, it seemed, wasn't ready to give up its secrets. Even today, the story of the missing loggers lingers in the local memory. The forest has changed little in the past century, its dense canopy continuing to shield its secrets from the outside world. Visitors to the area often report an overwhelming sense of isolation, as if the forest is watching, waiting. And sometimes, they say, if you listen closely, you can still hear the faint sound of axes ringing through the trees, long after the men who wielded them disappeared. What really happened to those men? Was it an accident, a tragic encounter with nature? Or did something far stranger unfold beneath the ancient trees of the Olympic Peninsula? Their tools remain, weathered by time, a reminder of those who were lost. But the answers remain hidden in the shadows of the forest, waiting to be uncovered or forgotten. The Oregon coast, with its towering cliffs, crashing waves, and mist-laden beaches, has long captivated those who venture there. A place where the sea and land seem to merge into one endless horizon, it holds an undeniable allure. But behind this striking beauty lies a history filled with stories that blur the line between reality and legend. From whispered tales of lost explorers to chilling accounts of unexplained phenomena, the Oregon coast has become a repository of mysteries that refuse to fade. Among these haunting tales, one stands out above the rest: the disappearance of a young boy named Jeremy Bright. His story has remained an unsolved enigma, casting a shadow over this picturesque region for decades. It was the summer of 1986, a season of warmth and celebration along the Oregon coast. 14-year-old Jeremy Bright, an athletic and outgoing teenager, was looking forward to attending the Coos County Fair in Myrtle Point, Oregon, a highly anticipated annual event. The fair was a vibrant gathering, complete with rides, games, and food stands, drawing families from all around the region. Jeremy had attended the fair many times before, and this year was no different. Accompanied by his younger sister, Sitay, the two siblings roamed the fairgrounds, enjoying the attractions together. The sights and sounds of the fair, laughter from the crowd, the creak of carnival rides, the smell of cotton candy, painted a picture of a carefree day. But that day, August 14, 1986, would mark the last time anyone saw Jeremy Bright alive. At some point in the late afternoon, near the towering Ferris wheel, Jeremy and his sister became separated. Jeremy, dressed in a bright red tank top and blue nylon shorts, was last seen around 4 p.m. by fairgoers, who recalled his cheerful demeanor. When the evening came and Jeremy didn't return home, his family initially assumed he had gotten caught up with friends. But as the night stretched on and Jeremy failed to appear, worry began to take hold. The initial theory was that Jeremy, like many teenagers, might have left the fairgrounds to hang out with friends. But as hours turned into days without any word from him, this explanation began to unravel. The local community quickly rallied to search for the missing boy. Volunteers combed the fairgrounds, the surrounding woods, and every possible place he might have gone. But no sign of Jeremy was found. Not his clothes, his belongings, or any clue to his whereabouts. It was as if he had vanished into thin air. As the days passed, the investigation took a troubling turn. Witnesses came forward with claims that Jeremy had been seen in the company of a man named Terry Lee Steinhoff, a local with a troubled past. Steinhoff would later be convicted of an unrelated murder, adding a chilling layer to the case. He was identified as a person of interest in Jeremy's disappearance, but despite questioning, he never provided any information that led to answers. Steinhoff died in prison in 2007, taking whatever he might have known to his grave. With no resolution in sight, attention turned to the whispers of folklore that have long surrounded the Oregon coast. The region's Native American tribes have passed down stories for generations, tales of spirits and creatures that inhabit the misty shores and shadowy forests. One of these legends speaks of the Amuluk, a mythical being from Kalapuya lore said to dwell near bodies of water. The Amuluk is believed to lure unsuspecting travelers into the depths, never to be seen again. Another tale speaks of the Devil's Lake monster, a beast that patrols the waters of Devil's Lake, known to ensnare its victims with an almost supernatural pull. While these stories may seem like the stuff of myth, they add a haunting context to the already unsettling case. Jeremy Bright's disappearance remains a mystery that has baffled investigators and haunted his family for decades. Despite countless efforts to uncover the truth, no new evidence has come to light. His family continues to search for answers, refusing to give up hope that one day they might learn what happened to him. The case stands as a stark reminder that even in the most familiar settings, the unexplained can occur. It leaves behind a void not just for those who knew Jeremy, but for the community that has carried this story as part of its collective memory. As we reflect on this heartbreaking event, we are left to ponder the fragile boundary between the known and the unknown, the natural and the supernatural. The Oregon coast, with all its breathtaking beauty, remains a place where mysteries endure. Its cliffs, beaches, and fog-shrouded waters hold echoes of stories long forgotten and questions still unanswered. And as the mist rolls in, cloaking the coastline in its timeless shroud, it's hard not to feel the weight of those unresolved tales lingering like the waves that crash against the shore. The Pacific Northwest, with its towering mountains, impenetrable forests, and mist-shrouded coastlines, is a region of unparalleled beauty. But beneath this stunning exterior lie stories that remain etched into its history, accounts of the unexplained, the missing, and the mysterious. Tonight we've ventured into its shadows. We began with the vanishing hikers of Mount Rainier, two seasoned trekkers whose footprints led searchers to more questions than answers. The mountain, with its unpredictable weather and whispers of a lurking presence, holds its secrets tightly. What became of Sarah and Liam remains unknown, but their story leaves us wondering about the forces that call the mountain home. Then we traveled to the dense, isolated forest of the Olympic Peninsula, where the early 20th century logging industry became the backdrop for the disappearance of 3 men. Their tools abandoned in a quiet clearing, no sign of a struggle, and only rumors of eerie voices in the woods. Did the forest itself claim them? Or is there truth to the ancient tales of something that watches from the shadows? Finally, we stood on the foggy beaches of the Oregon coast where a child's laughter was carried away on the wind. Local legends of spirits that roam the coastline and creatures drawn to the mist added a chilling layer to an already heart-wrenching tale. Was it folklore, coincidence, or something more? To this day, Jeremy Bright's story remains a tragic mystery that haunts those who remember. 3 places, 3 stories. One chilling truth. The Pacific Northwest is a place where answers are rarely clear and questions linger like the fog over its shores. As the sun sets over its mountains, forests, and beaches, we are left with only speculation. Are these tales of human error and tragedy, or is there something deeper, something beyond our understanding, at play? And if you have a story, your own or one passed down through the generations, share it with us in the comments. You never know. It might just be the next tale we bring to light.